put this up on my Alice boyfriend thing. But here's the point. Everybody has capacities. We all are capable of doing things. This video probably won't get any thumbs up or anything. And I'm not going to disable the abilities. Disable the leaving comments or giving it thumbs up or thumbs down. You can go ahead and vote on it any way you want. Because, this channel, nobody watches it anyway, except occasionally some stray troll or somebody who coming over from another channel, where a response video is made by a person whose name I would not mention, who's somewhat famous on the internet. But I'm going to talk for a few minutes. Let's talk about someone. Let's call her Jill. Okay. Jill is somebody who's been working at a job for 35 years. And Jill is somebody who has not brought about any changes for the conditions of people who work in that job. But she's in a position of leadership and has been for some time. And she sits around and not does anything. She's basically eating out of the hands of the bosses and the big wigs and stuff like that. And that's what she knows how to do. She's very good at doing things like that. Basically, to put it in the simplest way, at being like a yes person. You could say a yes man, but she's not a man. Somebody who always agrees with the boss. Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because she wants to get favors and everything. But she sees that her, the workers around her are being mistreated. There are a lot of people, specifically minorities, who are being mistreated. And she's not doing anything about it. And she herself is a minority. But she's not going to do anything. She could do something. She could stand up. She could say something. She could speak out. She won't. But then here comes a person like me. Somebody who does speak out. Somebody who says something. Somebody who puts themselves in a position of bringing about change. All this bringing about change is almost accidental on my part, because it's like what I'm doing, I'm just doing what just comes to my mind. I mean, I've come from a whole world in which I think a certain way. To me, everybody's equal. Nobody's better than everybody else. People have positions and titles and stuff, and that's for, like, within a corporation or in a company for particular specific reasons. There's a functionality to such things like that. However, it doesn't really make you a better person. If you're the vice president of a corporation, or the assistant manager, or the assistant director of something, that doesn't make you a better human being than a person who just started working there and who's a temporary employee. You're not a better person. But there is the structure that we create. It's just like in the military, a captain or a general, higher ranked than a private or a sergeant or a lieutenant. People have rank, but they don't. But sometimes people mistake this artificial construct as having some reflection in reality. It's like what I talked about before. The thing about the two dead squirrels. We could have a concept of one squirrel, these two dead squirrels, one being more dead than the other. I call it the more dead principle. And what do I mean by more dead? Where one squirrel simply dies of a heart attack, and he's just dead, laying there. And he's like, he looks okay, just like he's asleep, but he's dead. Another one, however, has been run over by a steamroller. He was trying to run across the street in the pavement, and the steamroller just squished him and squashed him. It was a bloody mess. Well, you get this feeling of more horror of the more squished up squirrel. So you kind of get the idea of he's more dead than the other one. The other one just looks like he's sleeping. If you just poke him a little bit, he'll get up, but he won't. He's never going to get up. He lay there long enough, he's just going to rot. But once he starts to rot, you get more of the ideal that he's dead. In other words, the ideal becomes deeper and more profound. But in reality, if they're both dead, one is not more dead than the other. Regardless of, our emotions might be more stirred by the more squashed up squirrel than by the one that's not squashed. So we can perceive something as having a greater capacity or a greater whatever. Whatever word you want to use, you can perceive it as having more of that than the other. Well, I'm going off on some rant somewhere. But, you know, there are a lot of times when perception kind of makes us see things as more than something. Just like a lot of times there are people who don't do anything, like in this example, Jill, who doesn't do anything to help. But she can tell herself that she is doing something. You know, like when I would make coffee. And this is all based on a true story, all this stuff I'm talking about. You know, and they didn't, you know, the people at the top would always put restrictions on everything. But I broke the rules, or didn't. The real rule was like an unwritten rule. It wasn't even an official rule. But it was an unwritten rule that they regulated everything, and you had to ask permission for everything, just about everything, practically, almost asking permission to wipe your ass or something, you know. But I did things boldly and did things and did things and did things, improved conditions. Little things, too. I'm not talking about big, massive things, just little things like bringing little comforts in and bringing little snacks in for people and making coffee. You know, I brought some joy into the lives of my coworkers. And it caused people to feel different and do things different and feel better about themselves as people. And this is something that people at the top didn't want, because when people feel good about themselves and that you raise their self-esteem in a legitimate way, the problem with that is that people who want to control and manipulate you have a harder time controlling and manipulating you. It's harder to control somebody who feels good about themselves. It's harder to control a person who has a positive attitude. It's just difficult. It's very difficult to do that. You know, and that's what I'm going to say about this. This is part one of the thing. It may not ever be a part two, but I just wanted to say that.